Ime Udoka, the story is updated. He has been suspended for the entire 2022-2023 season.
He has been suspended for having an intimate relationship with a female staffer. Now, the identity has not been revealed of who the staffer is, but sources are telling TMZ that one of her duties was travel planning, not only for Udoka, but also his longtime partner, fiancé Nia Long.
Ron Artest, the Malice in the Palace, had a year-long suspension. What would allow the team to make it a year-long suspension? That's a very long time.
You know, if you had forced a woman to do anything, they'd have put that out there. Because right now it's all shrouded in secrecy, and everybody's like, well, what happened? You know, why did he get a year? Why the other people didn't get suspended? So, you know, I don't think keeping it secret is going to be sustainable for the Celtics organization.
Allegedly, there may be more women than one. Allegedly, who the woman or women are and their relationships with whoever and just who they be.
I saw on Twitter that one of them may have been an executive's girlfriend or wife or something like that. I don't know if that's true or not.
Vice president's wife or something like that.
Yeah.
You can't hit her.
Yeah, it might be the...
She can't hit him.
It makes me tend to believe that there is a lot more there that we do not know the nuances of yet before we just come to ultimatum or absolute conclusions.
So apparently reports have come out that Ime Udoka, head coach of the Boston Celtics, has been, well, I guess it's not even an affair. He's just been cheating on Nia Long because they're not married, right?
That's not the most relevant part of this. And I wish people, it's like they feign concern, and yet the thing that they're most interested in is, oh, wasn't he with Nia Long? What's going on there? What's going on there?
Well, to be fair, that was at least before Celtics went far. That was the whole thing about Ime Udoka was that.
Ime Udoka is a former NBA player. He's been with the Celtics for years.
Correct.
He's known in NBA circles for being a hooper, not in a coach, not for dating Nia Long.
I guess I'm just talking about amongst fan bases.
Sure. I'm saying, so if you know Ime Udoka because of Nia Long and his relationship with her, then you don't really know who he is. You know what I'm saying? You're a casual observer.
But I think
even
that's
call you a
why
basketball fan.
This is blown up for some people.
My thing is, number one, it isn't the most relevant part of this story. And then number two, they've been engaged for 5 years. They literally made a fucking movie about how hilarious and comical it is to be engaged for that long. Maybe something happened. How do you know she don't already know? It isn't even your business.
It really is.
You know what I mean?
The personal relationship side is none of our business.
How do we know? Like this? Yeah, we all found out about this week. Ime Udoka didn't. The Celtics didn't. They've been investigating him for a year.
And they knew that portion of it was consensual up until homegirl, made allegations.
So let's go through the timeline too.
So essentially, she reported to the Celtics that he had made some sort of unwanted comments towards her, and that's kind of what sparked the investigation into the whole thing, and then what led to his year-long suspension.
And see, the part of this that is very frustrating is that people are already backing in the corners and they're choosing sides, and the Celtics have been so vague in describing what actually was said or done or what happened.
Or who's involved.
That is, or even who's involved, which I guess I can understand that, protecting the person's identity.
Agreed.
But at the same time, it's like you've put him out to dry. And whether or not it's fair for you to be doing that, we can't decide because we don't have the information. The only thing you've told us is that he's obviously violated some team rules, which is, hey, let's just be honest. That's in terms of morality levels in the NBA circles, there are a lot of team rules being broken. I think if we just start combing through and investigating the way that the Celtics investigated Ime Udoka, especially when you talk about relationships within the workplace. There is a very obvious way that these type of relationships can turn insidious, right? The power dynamics, what have you, I understand all of that. it is a bit childish to me, or naive. Let me not say childish. Let me say it's a bit naive to ignore the fact that a vast, I wouldn't say a majority, but a good percentage of relationships spark from where you spend the most time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which would be work.
A large majority of the time.
You spend most of your time there, 40 hours a week, maybe even more, seeing the same people who have the same interest, who have the same level of expertise, who have all these similarities and compatibilities to you. It just seems a bit naive to think that those relationships can be regulated out of the workplace. It's not feasible. Now, you have those rules in place to protect people from falling victim to being preyed upon or
things like this in general.
But see, here's my thing. Without you telling me what it is that happened, I have to float somewhere in between, improper actions or some sort of sexual nature and just violating a team rule. See, violating a team rule and then leaking the fact that you're going to suspend your coach days before you do it and then suspending him for a year for violating a team rule is trash. If you realize that there is more going on with this Ime Udoka situation, more information that you're not letting out to protect yourself, and you're just suspending him to cover your ass, that is also trash.
That's big trash.
Right? We have no idea it's kind of fucked up. Because again, the NBA is not prompting this investigation. It's the Celtics.
Mm-hmm. Two other things are extremely nasty about this whole thing. One, the fact that his crime, whatever it is apparently just as equal as whatever. And obviously, one's a league-wide thing and one's a like you just said, a team-wide thing. But the fact that he's serving essentially the same sentence that Robert Sarver is serving, a little nuts.
Fam, that looks terrible.
A little nuts.
That looks terrible. That either means, A, you believe the fact that he had a relationship with a woman on the staff is equal to Robert Sarver calling his players niggers. Either you believe that, or what Ime Udoka did far exceeds making a crude comment to a coworker in the workplace, and you are not acknowledging that.
Yeah.
Either way, it looks nuts.
Mm-hmm.
It looks nuts for them to handle it this way.
I think the other thing that's extremely nuts about this situation is that because they have decided not to disclose who the person is who was involved with Ime, people have just entirely speculated and pretty much assumed that is this. I don't have her name, but I'll probably put it somewhere in there, that she is the one involved, even though apparently she is not the one who's involved. And now everybody's assuming she's the one that's involved. This is going to probably, be negative for her and her career and the things that she does, and she has no involvement with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's on the Celtics, man.
Yeah.
That is on the Celtics. When an employee brings something of this nature to you, right? They don't expect you to march it back out to the nationwide media. They don't expect you to broadcast it to the entire world and make a show of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what they're coming forward for. And this whole fiasco has turned into a circus around what the Celtics are either A, trying to cover up, or B, completely botching in the way that we're handling this. A year-long suspension to me says that something egregious happened.
Mm-hmm.
Dating someone in the workplace, while maybe a violation of team rules, is far from egregious.
Well, they knew it was consensual at one point and didn't do anything about it. So I highly believe that.
So like,
it didn't have anything to do with their consensual relationship.
If we were accusing him of threatening the young lady's job or threatening, her person or assaulting her in the workplace in some kind of way, or like if that's what we're talking about and you suspend it, bro, for a year, and that ends up coming out, that is going to look terrible.
Yeah.
Because it is terrible. Mm-hmm. And then conversely, if we're sitting up here talking about, oh, well, you cheated on your fiance and, you know, lady may or may not have been of a lighter complexion.
And the organization looks down upon that.
Yeah. Well, again, look who we talking about.
Yeah.
It's Boston.
Yep. Yep.
So tell me it don't make sense for certain people in the know or in certain positions within the Boston hierarchy, seeing that play out. Also, Ime handing them the smoking gun and the fact that he violated team rules in doing so. But that just weren't too happy about that. And maybe they're just a little bit more willing to handle this out in the public eye as opposed to handling it the way that most American corporations handle it when something like this happens, because it happens everywhere.
It'd be pretty bad if it is a white girl, because that's just going to come off as she kind of Karen'd her way into the situation, and then
I cannot imagine it any other way. Like that's what's in my mind, man. Ime Udoka got caught up messing with somebody's niece, daughter, or somebody that maybe the owner wanted or something like that. I don't know. This is all speculation. But he done messed with somebody's chick, and they didn't like the fact that their chick was with that persuasion of a guy. It's just Boston. Multiple times rated and voted one of the most racist places in all of America.
You're looking at it that way. I guess I was looking at it as Ime is, with some little snow bunny on the side. He says, look, I'm never leaving Nia Long for you, so like just chill out. And she got upset and then went to
so that's the other part of it too, right? It was a consensual relationship. Mm-hmm. It seems like both parties acknowledged that, but then here we're left with he made unwanted comments to me. So now that's the sticking point, because it's the only thing that was explaining the situation even in the slightest bit. Mm-hmm. Unwanted comments. What does that mean? What does that mean? Does that mean he came on to you after you guys decided that it was over?
Does it mean he said, I'm not leaving my woman for you?
Well, that's where specifics needs to be told. You suspended this man for a year.
Yeah.
What was the unwanted comment? What was it? I feel like that's only fair.
I also think if that was the case, the scenario that I gave, it would make sense as to why Nia Long hasn't said anything and probably will never say anything, because she gets to, keep him out of that situation.
Think here's how I saw the situation. Ime has something going on with one of the staffers in the organization. Mm-hmm. It probably got a little too obvious, and people start seeing that. Whether that trickled back home to Nia Long, I can't. I have no idea. I don't know either one of them. Mm-hmm. But it certainly would explain a very long engagement. The organization gets wind of it because the young lady is probably upset, like you said. Now that everything is getting out, Ime is probably trying to distance himself from the young lady.
Of course.
She gets upset, and now we probably have a claim about unwanted comments. Mm-hmm. Not an assault, not he threatened my job, not, unwanted comment is so vague.
It can literally
it's purposely vague.
It can literally mean like he just said something that I didn't want to hear.
He said something to me in passing that made me feel intimidated or something like that. That tells us nothing.
And there's really no reason for there to be a large media story about it.
So if it's that intentionally vague, it could go so many ways. They could be intentionally vague because they feel like maybe the case, they've done all of this hubbub about it, and now the case doesn't flesh out. It's not as strong as they thought it was. So now they have to be vague about it.
It's either a really large story or something really big either happened or almost nothing happened.
Yeah, but it's too vague for it to be in the middle.
Yeah.
Like they're compensating for something is what it feels like.
Yeah. They're either compensating or they're just trying to make it what is huge and could be an even bigger story. They're trying to limit it from getting the attention, which also why this story is getting way more attention than the whole Brett Favre thing is kind of crazy, but neither here nor there. I don't think ESPN has said a thing about the Brett Favre thing, but black man in a relationship, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Of course.
Wow. Wild.
Stephen A., with all due respect, this is not about pointing the finger. Stop. What became apparent to me in this press conference is that we do not have all of the information here. And it was frustrating to me that the Celtics declined to elaborate or to give more specifics about what exactly the rule breaking was that led us to this point. So that I just want to get that out of the way first. But to answer your question, Molly, I think what stood out to me, I think what stood out to me is that Brad Stevens, he was upset. That's what stood out to me about what he termed rampant Twitter BS is the word that he used, that women were unfairly dragged into this within the Celtics organization. You could see that Brad Stevens was visibly upset about this. And I also found that to be gross and unnecessary, that folks were bringing in the names and the images of women that is just not a fact, that was purely speculation. And so to me, that is what stood out. But the Celtics as an organization could have done more, and short of doing more ahead of this yesterday, they could have owned that responsibility in this press conference. I understand that there were legal parameters that they had to operate within for everybody involved, and I appreciate the fact that they brought in outside counsel and did a thorough organization, and I think that that is something that was clearly necessary in this situation. But the fact that it was able to go on all day, the fact that we are sitting here debating whether somebody else should have been suspended or not, we are not here, Stephen A., to further blame women. That is not why we are here.
I finally, because the first clip I saw was just of Stephen A. responding to her. And so you played me the version where we actually get to hear Malika's speech, her soliloquy first. And as I'm listening to her, I'm waiting to hear the thing that Stephen A. gets so offended by in his response, because I'm like, I agree with most of this. Like, the Celtics do look like a pieces of shit for being so vague and for handling this the way they did. And they also do wear some of the blame for how their employees that weren't involved in this at all have been dragged through everything, right? And be speculated as being the ones that were involved with Ime. Like she's right. Ding, ding, ding. I'm like, what's the problem? Then she gets to the last part of her sentence and says, what we not gonna do is blame women. Fam, where did that come from? Everything you were talking about had to do with the Celtics organization, their handling of the situation, how good it was of them to hire outside counsel, this, that, and the third, talking about the internet trolls and people speculating about the women. Where did blaming the women come into anything that you said or anybody else said on set? Where did that come from? You just took a well thought out point, a well thought out take, and you doodled all over it with your virtue signal, with your flag waving. Where did that even come from? Who was even saying that? You weren't even saying that. You weren't saying a single thing about the woman in question until the last sentence where you said, what we not going to do is blame women. Nobody was blaming women. No one was doing that. It was just, it caught me so off guard.
I can't even think of where in the specific situation or even amongst all of the takes that I've seen through Twitter, through ESPN and all that stuff, where anybody said anything blaming homegirl.
Also, on top of that, the way that you are now framing this is that she's a victim. She's somebody who needs to be protected from obviously Ime Udoka. You see how, like, how you going out of your way to champion something that's not being attacked now turns a skeptical eye, because you went into it saying that we don't have enough information. This is way too vague. You come out of it saying that this woman needs to be protected. How do you know that?
Anything
How do you
said
know
about
that?
homegirl is complete speculation because we don't even know who she is.
Protected from what? The only thing that we've gotten is consensual relationship and unwanted comment.
Yeah.
Who's blaming her for the unwanted comment, Malika? Who's blaming her for that? You basically gave the same sentiment that Stephen A gave. This shit is way too vague. We have no idea what's going on. And the way that this was handled in terms of letting the information out has been completely unprofessional. He said a lot of the same things that you said. Where in there where either one of you said anything about the culpability of the women at all? It was never mentioned. Where the hell did you come from with that? Yeah, dog. Sheesh.
She made that up out of thin air.
I don't know where that shit came from. Give us your thoughts. What did you think about the Ime Udoka situation? Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And come back next week for more content.
And make sure you subscribe to us because we like to talk about just different things going on in the sports community. And like I said, make sure you like and subscribe.